Okay, just give me a minute if things are working. Uh, okay, mic check, mic check, mic check. 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 Okay, mic's working now. Just get it positioned. Hello, can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, that one there, and I think, took 2 or 3 tries to get the mic to work. Uh, okay, I want to get off with some personal stuff. I really don't know what's going on. If I was sure, I would be feeling differently about it. But my brother has had a lot more money in the past for stuff. Either he isn't getting as much or it's going somewhere else. Um, the only time that it's been like this before is when he bought a new phone. And I kind of told you about that. He bought a new phone and then he dropped it and shattered it or cracked it or whatever. And then he was trying to get. He'd had it for like, I'm not entirely sure, but it seems like he had it for like a month or two. And after he dropped it, he was trying he was trying to get on that protection plan, which you have to basically start up as soon as you get the phone because they don't want, one, they're not idiots, and they don't want some sleazy scumbag. Uh, they don't want some sleazy scumbag uh, getting on it after they've already broken the phone. And he was trying to. Well, I just got it. Well, they got your records. You're not gonna be able to pull a Trump. I don't know if he voted for Trump, but he doesn't seem to. I'll tell you this. He doesn't seem to like it when you point out the truth about Republicans uh, at all. And he, I mean, I've seen this. The food he's getting, he's not bringing in a lot of food, or at least a lot of not a lot of high value food. You know, like I mean, he used to fill that fucking freezer with dinners. You know, your frozen dinners. He ain't doing that anymore. One, I've told him if he does, I'm gonna throw it out because we can't. Because he started filling that up and then he was filling mine up and like no, you can't do that. He's got that big one out on the porch. I should get the two fridge ones. And what little bit I need in there. Like, sometimes I get, if I just pick up like a couple frozen pizzas, well, with all the meat, which we share, very little bit of the meat that I get is solely for me. And, but he isn't filling up. Well, let's just say it doesn't seem like the money he is spending on food is costing, it isn't like he used to pick up. And some of that could be inflation. And, but, the, but he gets to where, and this is the first time he's done it to me, but he picks up the cat's evening food. I pick up their breakfast food, and then we both pick up stuff for lunch. And I don't even know if I spend more. It's either break even or I usually spend more on them. But that's not a big deal. That's not the worst of it. But back, I think it started when he I think it started when he bought that first phone. That's when he had problems getting the money. And so it is what it is. But hang on. Okay. But he always paid me back. Well, recently, I think it was in December. It might have been new November, but I think it was either that or it was November and December. He got to where he wasn't able to afford his share of the food, the evening food. And well, then when this month came up, I asked him. I go, hey, you owe me 4 boxes of pet food. Are you going to be able to pay me back? And he goes, well, not all of it. And he didn't buy one single fucking. He bought the food he was supposed to buy this month, sorta, but he didn't pay me back. I've had to buy all the breakfast food. I should have got this month off. And I don't know what he's spending the fucking money on. And it's either for other than legal forms of pain medication, or it's for his phone. And I don't know which one he got, but and I don't care. It's I can't keep buying the pets food. They're gonna have to eat the dry. And but so we're they're not gonna go without food because they got dry. And whenever and we share. I mean I mean we both do. We always offer them like when we've got food, if they'll eat it. And I've offered her hamburger, and she didn't want it, and she sometimes eats it. And and she's got plenty of dry. To be honest, like when she got found, when the parents found her, back then she was getting like wet food, I think for breakfast, and then she had dry the rest of the day. She got. I mean, back then she got one can of wet food, and by the time I got back here, she was uh, getting like 3 meals a day wet, and my sister blames that on my brother, and I don't mind blaming him if it's if he deserves it, but I I got into that with my mom because she'd sit there and she, oh, I don't think she's getting enough to eat and blah blah blah. This is before they got pat or trouble. And I go, well, I go, you can feed her what you want, but I go, when she gets overweight and her health is at risk because you've overfed her, it's on you. Because this is the thing she'd do. She'd want to do something, and then she'd want to blame it on something. Oh no, you got. I mean, I don't care. I really don't want to see that cat overweight, but she's your cat. I just helped you out when she was sick, and then she kind of knocked it off. But I don't know. I really don't know. But it could have been him. It could have been her, and I don't want to blame him when I don't know. And I really don't. But I they got down to where they were 4 or 5 days away. I think they were. I think I had 5 cans left, or 6 cans left, or something like that. And I just started cutting the evening meal to 1 can for the two of them. And the cats are not, they're not happy. But the only thing I feel bad is I hope they don't think it's because they did anything. They have been really good cats. And that's the only thing I really feel bad about is, are they going to start thinking that they did something wrong because they didn't? And because they're and they've got plenty to eat, but they know they're not getting what they're supposed to. And but I just but I can't explain it. Like I'll be honest with you, I don't think the cats would understand, but my fucking brother could. If I knew for a fact that he was fucking the dog, I'd tell him. Might not do them any good, but it'd do me a lot of good, But I'm like, I don't know that he's fucking the dog, and I just tell him, I go, hey, look, he couldn't afford to buy you enough food this month. He's into me for 5 boxes. I think that's what it is. And, he's probably hoping I wouldn't remember. And maybe some days I don't, but the ones that count, it does. But I told him, I go, until he gets his money back, and I go, until he pays me back, and maybe not even then, but at least until he pays me back, I'm not paying for any of the food that they eat from him. They can eat, and I'm like, and they're looking at me, and I go, look, again, I don't know if it does any good, but I tell them, I go, look, I go, I could feed you 2 cans, but I go, you're going to run out in 2 days instead of 4. And I'm just trying to ration it because something like the 10th or the 12th is when he gets his money. And but again, if you go and buy this fucking phone that you can't fucking afford, you're going to have to get a cheaper phone. Um, you're just going to have to get a cheaper phone. You're not going to be able to spend this money. If you drop your phone, you might not be able to play your games. You'll have one for the phone calls. The one he had was good enough. It's just the speaker went out. Well, he uses like headsets, and he's got a speaker. You could use that to get by. Until whatever. Uh, so I don't know. But so there's that going on. But I really, again, I can't see anything that he's bought it on. But he did get a couple packages, and but they weren't very big, so one of them could have had a phone in it. Uh, it could have been, maybe, But again, that's the thing. If he, to me, it's a cat. I may, now if I get to where I can't go out someday, they might, But I try to buy that cat food in advance, so they have it. I don't ever want to get to where I'm running out at the last minute, because that might be, hey, they don't eat because I don't feel like driving today. I'm not physically healthy enough to drive today. But if he don't really care about them, and this is the thing, he said there, well, oh, if I go somewhere, what are you gonna fucking, you're gonna take them and starve them? This is, I mean, if there's nobody there to take care of him, he can't clean the. Oh, he tells me he can't clean the litter box. Those cats would be better off being put down than go with him. That would just be the gist of it. So I'm stuck taking care of them, and I hope I can do it. I hope I can just last until they expire, and then I don't really give a shit. Um, but it's I don't know. It gets old. Okay, well, anyways, got that side note out of the way. I did a documentary. I covered this documentary before, and the video was the audio was kind of screwed up. JFK X was a documentary unlike any I have seen. It's on Tubi. It changed it to Tube, but it's on Tubi, so you can check it out. The autocorrect here. This isn't as bad as the one that's on my tablet or my phone that I play. That one's really fucking bad for what it does. November 1963, Kennedy was killed. It's been over 60 years with a question, but the question still remains. Evidence was destroyed. Secret Service violated state law. Uh, it it just it there's unanswered questions, uh, and I this is a temporary, just because I'm doing this. If you want, write the president, tell him he should declassify everything in the Kennedy assassination. Uh, I mean, seriously, it's just, and let them know, hey, you're failing with young voters, and I don't think it's legitimate. I think it's bullshit. But you're failing with young voters. If you suddenly declassify, if you are the president, the president who declassified the Kennedy assassination, that can win you young and old supporters. Uh, you absolutely could. So maybe you write him. Maybe that's the only one I'll do. I might do it again later for anybody that forgot. But write the president and tell him, hey, you should declassify all this Kennedy stuff. Every fucking scrap of paper, everything. Uh, just declassify it all. Uh, on October 26, 2017, Trump had reversed a position that he had to release all the files. And I think he's the one who signed the it's the one that the UFO one is based on, where the you'd have a panel that would look into it and review the documents to declassify them. That the UFO amendment is based on. Well, uh, and he left that up to Biden, and Biden did some of it. But I mean, Jesus Christ! I mean, you can maybe tell him, hey, look, even you were after that. It's not like it's you knew the guy that was guilty of. He came into office much later. You know, he was either not alive or he was a kid. He he was a kid. He was in public schools, or he was in or college when Kennedy. You you, you can't have anything to do with it. And this documentary is one of them, because I don't know. I watch, and I do think it's valid to cover it, but it just sounds fucking crazy. It really does. There's it seems to me they were talking out of both sides of their mouth. One minute bitching about this, and the other minute using it as an excuse for something. I don't know if I took notes on it, but yeah, the CIA and others convinced him to change course from the truth. But is anyone else any better? I mean, I'm not even gonna go there where you can look at Trump being a dishonest, lying ass dog. But is anybody else any better? I mean, we've had multiple Democrats and Republicans. At least Biden did the disclosure, and Trump signed the law into action. I mean, you got to be honest. They're not the worst ones in this. Uh, JFK had many enemies: CIA, Hoover at the FBI, organized crime, uh, and there's others. Possibly the military-industrial complex. Eisenhower tried to warn us. It was on his. It was a farewell speech he gave when he left the White House after 8 years. He tried to warn us, and there, you don't know. I mean, you just don't know. It could be, because you say what you want. Now, this is not. I'm going off script here. This is not in the documentary, at least in the part I watched today. But you look at. I can't remember who dug it up. It wasn't. I don't think the press did. It might have been a journalist, might have been a protester. But before the Vietnam War, there was all these military contractors that were going broke. They didn't look good. And then after the war, they were like flush with money. And it was the same thing like with Halliburton uh, in Bush 43, Bush 43rd president, W. Bush, not H.W. Bush, which was his father. But it was the same thing with Halliburton. Halliburton, from what I remember, and if my memory's bad, don't trust, verify this. Same thing with the Vietnam one. But Halliburton, that he worked for and was still paying him a salary. Yeah, this is the thing. When you look at Hunter Biden, it is such bullshit that they're investigating him. When, like, you've got the money that the SCOTUS is taking, you got the money that Cheney was taking from Halliburton while he was in the White House. Um, but he didn't break the emoluments clause because it was an American company. He wasn't, belly up for blowjobs for all this foreign money like Trump was. But they, but his wife was getting money from special interest or whatever. Cheney's wife, Liz's mom. And I want to throw this out here. If it was attributed to Taylor Swift, I don't know if she actually did it, but it was said that she posted it, and she posted something about I love him so much or something like that. And she goes, no, I'm not talking about my boyfriend. That's what Trump said about the leader of China. And I can't remember the exact wording, but she goes, come on. Are you guys serious? He's literally every dictator's side bitch. And I'm like, oh my God. If she really said that, if she really said that, um, I didn't think my respect for her could get any higher, but that was fucking funny. I mean, even if it wasn't true, it's fucking funny. Uh, but I don't think I agreed with this the first time I watched it, and I can confirm. I there was a lot because I got to where now first time I watched most of it, but this one here I got like 50 minutes into it, and I'm just like, yeah, I can't sit through this again. But the first part was pretty good, but it was stuff you get from pretty much every other uh, documentary about this almost. Uh, but I could be wrong, and I firmly believe that I could be wrong. But right off the bat, they said there were no major mob investigations before or after JFK. I think the facts prove that wrong. Now maybe they were maybe more zealous, but you've had. I mean, I'm not even talking recent days, but they the one judge. He was, I think it was Judge Sullivan who was investigating Mike Flynn. Uh, he uh, he hired a retired judge and a former prosecutor. I think that prosecutor made his bones on organized crime. I can't remember, but what he did is he hired him to be the prosecutor. Now, when you look at officially, like if you want to nitpick it, and there was a he was a lawyer I used to follow on YouTube. I don't anymore because you get to where you can't trust him on this stuff. He was really good at First Amendment issues, but he would tell you he's like, well, I'm not an expert on First Amendment issues, but I don't think you're going to find any other lawyer who isn't an expert who, oh shit. When I should go back and redo this, but these here I have to space out or they grow too close and then they become a mess to clean up. Okay. But he would go into that. He's like, oh yeah, but you don't won't spend another lawyer that spends as much time in the law library researching this stuff, and so that he's got a lot of credibility. But he didn't make that leap to studying federal law. He thought that boom, it just automatic because he knew about First Amendment law. He was an expert at everything, and that's a fatal flaw. You got to do the work. He was pulling a Neil deGrasse Tyson with federal law because he got mad because I'm not going to go into this a whole thing, but he got mad at a bunch of things and thought, well, they should just because he was a Republican and he couldn't wait to suck Trump's cock or whatever. But this is not family material today. I'm apologizing in advance, but I'm not feeling. Yesterday I was worse, but I didn't exactly feel bad. But I felt off. I had a lot of ringing in my ears after the last couple stream. Like right after I did the stream, I had this ringing in my ears, and I didn't feel bad. I didn't feel sick or anything like that. I just felt weird. My stomach wasn't that hungry and whatnot. And I don't know, but he uh, he started doing the same thing the sovereign citizens did. Like he would hang on, hang on. But he would do this same thing the sovereign citizens would do. He was starting to go against the government on the COVID restrictions, and he was putting up evidence that just was not true, and he was getting called out by. But he was doing the same thing. He found a website. It was the Black's. I mean, if you understand sovereign citizens, it was the Black's Law different dictionary version of medical science, and he just got nuts. But he was going off that they had to dismiss the case and all this shit, and it sounded a lot like Trump's lawyers now in court, just unhinged shit. He was bragging about how he was violating curfew and going out in restaurants for violating the health code, and going out and eating in the restaurant instead of only getting takeout. And I'm like, how fucking old are you? How fucking childish are you that you're willing to risk people's life just so you can have a hot meal at a restaurant? I mean, it just fucking totally selfless, selfish, childish, immature shit. And the biggest one I can give you, and then I'm gonna move on. He didn't know because there was a case that came up, and so this might not have been. Well, it was all his fault because he still shouldn't have thought he knew federal law because he doesn't practice it. He doesn't practice criminal law at the state level. He's like just he's a fucking most of the shit he does is file paperwork. And I'm not bad mouthing the guy. I'm not, but that's what you do. I don't even know if he was in trial. He might have just been the one at his law firm that filed paperwork and shit. But he it was like a year ago or a year before this happened on that he started flipping out, or it was several months before. But there was a California case, and he was California, I think, where the prosecutor or the DA or whatever, they dismissed the case. Well, in California law, the judge don't have any say in that. Because the judge did not, now it might have been corrupt, it might have been unethical, I don't know. But the judge did not have any say in it. If the prosecutor, as I remember it, maybe I'm wrong, but as I remember it, if the prosecutor dismisses the case, that's game over. And to you, this came up in the Flynn trial. Even if the judge saw the defendant come in and put a bag of money on the prosecutor's desk, and then the prosecutor stood up and dismissed the case, I don't think they even had that. You'd have to deal with it in other means, but the case was dismissed. And in federal court, it's not. Once you come to the federal court with the case and it's accepted and they've entered a plea, you can recommend that the case is dismissed, but the judge, it can't be dismissed except for by the judge's leave. Can't remember exactly how it's worded, but the judge has to approve it. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The judge has to approve it. You've got to make your case before him. And when what it was is, I don't know if there was any money involved, but they fired the two prosecutors because they wouldn't do it. Bill Barr got in there, said, "Oh yeah, drop this case." "Nah, we quit. We're not doing it." And then he hired two new prosecutors. This judge sees new prosecutors come in, sees them immediately go to dismiss the case, and he's like, "I'm not dismissing this case. And I know I'm good. I said I'd get off of this, but there was a point where the prosecutor said, because they were helping Sidney Powell, I think is the one that was defending him. They go, well, she said that. She goes, well, you have to dismiss the case. There's nobody prosecuting it. That's literally what she said. Um, the rare moment of truth from the corrupt lawyer that was representing Flynn, I think most people would agree. So he hired this retired judge. He retired as a judge. He was a former prosecutor. I think he put Gotti in jail, or he was on the team that put Gotti in jail. And it's like, if you've heard of an amicus brief, the name is something amicus something or other, and that's what he was referred to. But he was doing the work of the prosecutor, and that shitbag from California is like, well, he's not the prosecutor. And I go, look, you're a lawyer, I'm not. I go, you can dress it up with all the fancy words, but I go, if he's in court doing the prosecutor's work, in my view, he's the prosecutor. I don't care what you call him. I'm not going to get into semantics. I go, in this case, you're the sovereign citizen, and I have the fucking facts. But he did that, and then when it went to appeal, and this, I promise, this is the last bit. I think the appeals court, Glenn Kirshner's the one that covered it. The appeals court asked the question, well, what's your fear? The judge has only said that he wants to have a hearing on it. He wasn't making, he was going to have a hearing and then base his judgment on the facts. He wasn't making a summary judgment. You can come in, present your facts, the other side can present their facts, and you're good to go. And he goes, well, we fear an investigation into the executive branch by someone in the justice branch. And they go, and the guy, I don't know if it was him or a different judge, he goes, okay, so let me ask you this. And it was kind of like the one that they had recently on Trump, his lawyers argued, where the judge asked, well, if SEAL Team 6 was tasked with killing one of President Trump's enemies, somebody running against him, somebody writing articles against him, that's something you could argue that is within his duties. It's within the outer perimeter of his duties, because that's a long story, but that's something comes up. The president has certain immunity from certain things within the bounds of his duties. He goes, you could make an argument that that's within his duty to order SEAL Team 6 to basically to kill someone. And they go, if he did that, are you saying he could not be convicted unless he was impeached? And they go, well, yeah, unless he was. And so they go, so your answer is no. And he goes, well, no, it's a qualified. She asked, if he could be, basically held accountable, found, put on trial, if he was not found guilty. And they said no. There's no qualified. She asked you. She didn't ask if he could just be put on trial, and then you say, oh, not if he's, and really, whether he's, I think that came up too, but whether he's impeached or not, that's not a part of the judicial process. That's a political process. But in this one here, the judge asked, he goes, if Michael Flynn came in here and him or his defense lawyers went over and put a big bag of money on the desk of the prosecution, and then the prosecution counted it and immediately filed to dismiss the case, are you saying a judge doesn't have the right to investigate that? Yes, Your Honor. These are members of our Justice Department, folks. These are, I feel safer already. But the judge flipped on. He goes, well, then you're saying the judge has to be complicit with an act of corruption going on in open court. And then that, I mean, that flared that judge right. His he flared up like a pack of fucking rabid hemorrhoids. But that's the thing here. I don't even know where I was going with this, but anyways, back to the story. Uh, the mob investigations. But that got me off on it. But yeah, I think facts prove that wrong. I don't think they had any before, but they've had mob investigations since then. And I think La Costa Nostra, the Italian mob, I think it's had an impact. I don't think they're gone, but they it had an impact. Uh, Watch the documentary to get the full story. I'm going to hit key points and add to the discussion when and if I'm able, like I just did there. Oh, but if you want, I mean, I'm serious. This is not a bad. It's not a bad. I just think it's bullshit, but I could be wrong. But I think it was well put together. It was very well done. Uh, I just disagree with that guy, and none of us know because they won't declassify everything. I mean, my God, I mean that's what's your biggest proof that the JFK is a conspiracy because they haven't released everything. I mean, if there was nothing to see, if there was nothing going on, they would have declassified it. I mean, I don't know what it is, but this is uh, hang on. But this is the thing. God, I can't. He used to be on CNN. Now he's on News Nation. His brother was the governor of New York, Como. It's what Como said. He's like, look, I don't know what it is, but you know, there. The reason I believe that there's something there is because they've got all this stuff classified. And again, I don't know what it is. I really don't know. I think the smoking gun one was the best documentary. I think they solved it, possibly, or at least solved an end of it. But the it's because you got all this stuff classified. You got these secrets. That's the biggest thing. The answers have shifted. After the Warren Commission, there's been one or two federal congressional investigations, and one of them flat out said that there was more than one shooter. And then nothing. We've got nothing on that. Uh, then in this here, they talked to a modern day former mob boss. They were I don't know if they were interviewing or if they got it where he was interviewed, but he was talking about the JFK assassination, and it dragged up an old tape recording of a mobster. They tell you who it is in there talking about killing JFK. Um, I I didn't quite catch it because I was typing as I was doing this, so I'd have some notes for this. But it was either I don't know if it was hypothetical or if he was talking about it like it happened. But it was an old. I think the guy was a long ago relic from ancient days. But they tell you who he is. I believe they showed his picture, and then they had this tape of him talking about killing JFK. I don't know in what shape or form of it. And hang on, let me get this in here. Uh, and then this is where they get it where they're. I don't really want to badmouth them. I'm gonna do a little fishing here. But he talked about the major networks not covering basically the he called it a parade, I think. I don't think it was a parade, not technically. It wasn't like a park. He was just driving, waving at people, but he kept calling it a parade. And he talked about the major networks back. And you got to think back then you didn't have all these channels. You had PBS, you had ABC, NBC, and CBS. I think that was it. Sometimes you had different networks, but you had the big three and PBS. You had three or four channels. I don't even think cable was an option back then. And but he was talking about them not covering him, and I think he's getting trapped in modern views to judge it. This is like when you look at the courts, I can't remember what it's called, but they try and view the case law in the way it was intended to be used when it was written. And that's what you have to do in history too. And back then, cameras, you didn't have mobile cameras. The networks did. They had these big fuckers that had frames and, like landing gear or whatever. They took up space. The networks didn't use these little cameras. They didn't have that many because they were expensive. So they didn't have cameras lurking at every major, and this I don't even think was a major point, but they didn't have access. I'm sure they had correspondence. I'm sure they had cameras where the president came from and where his next stop was. And if it was the airport, it was the airport. They didn't have, umpteen cameras and umpteen correspondence to waste on every little place you might be able to catch sight of the president. And I think that's what the people, whoever, that were killing Kennedy, I think they were counting on that. They were counting on no cameras to be there, you know. And there weren't a lot of people. Like if you look, there was a few people, like people that, because I don't think there's any houses there. I think it was like office buildings that. So you had people that came out maybe on lunch or maybe their boss let them go out, and see the president. But you didn't have an overwhelming number of people there. There were not massive crowds, and that backs up the fact that this is why the news didn't cover it. It wasn't like he wasn't going to do any grin and greet. He wasn't going to stop and wave and sign autographs. He was just driving through, and but that's the first key point that I really gotta say, like, wow, I don't think the history of it matches up. Uh, you know, yeah, I covered that pretty good. And I think it's consistent with the times. It's not consistent now. It's not. They got helicopters with cameras, and sometimes they got building cams that they can use, the CCTV stuff, where they can, there's a lot more access to cameras, and journalists can snap pictures and take video with their cameras too. Uh, it admits many people witnessed JFK. This is what they say. They're like many people witnessed JFK's head explode with blood and brain matter. They say they saw Jackie, his wife, seen going back onto the trunk to retrieve something and assist an agent up on the car. They're admitting this. and it'll be right up at the end of this. It'll make more sense. But this is what they admitted in the documentary. But and I think what it is, the documentary was one thing, and I think they were just trying to presenting all sides. Where this guy had his own viewpoint and maybe even his own agenda. Uh, okay, then they went through and they said after that JFK was rushed to Parkland Hospital, and after several hours of surgery, they pronounced him dead. They're just this is the first. I'd say the first half hour, or pretty close to it, was just them laying down and I didn't cover everything, but I covered the major points. Uh, and there were several people who reported seeing Jack Ruby. He's the guy who killed Oswald. Oswald is the guy who accused of killing Kennedy, and I don't think he did. I am convinced, if the stuff I've heard in the documentaries is true, I'm convinced that Oswald didn't do it, and I'm more convinced that even if he did do it, he would have never been convicted on the evidence that they had. Uh, but Jack Ruby was seen at the hospital. A pristine bullet was found at the hospital. I put that in quotes. Found at the hospital on the stretcher. Pristine is what it was called. It is absolutely okay for anybody to use that when talking about it, but it's one of those things where it's true to call it that, but it's a little misleading. Um, it, there were some signs of wear and tear on it. It didn't look like it came out of the box, but I will tell you this: if you've never seen the movie The Shooter, uh, that bullet, it's more believable that that bullet was part of some kind of paper patching like they used in the movie The Shooter than it was that went through two bodies and hit at least one or two bones. It and that's the thing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I won't go into it at great detail. Uh, and it looks, because it was found on the stretcher. It didn't pop out of the body and get lost in the car. It was found on the stretcher, and there was a I can't it wasn't I don't think it was included in this, but one of the other ones, I just remembered this now. I didn't remember it when I was watching it. Uh, there was a guy. I think it was a Secret Service agent. He came forward before he died and admitted that he's the one who put the bullet there. Uh, I don't. I they didn't. I don't remember it speculating, but maybe he knew they were covering up shit, so he didn't want to go through official process, and he just wanted to go dump it on there. Or maybe he was aware of some kind of illegal fucking thing to kill the president, and he didn't want to get taken out himself, so he did that quietly. But and again, I don't know. Maybe the guy was getting dementia, maybe he was senile and losing his mind. But he came forward. Again, don't trust. Verify this if you want. But it seems to me, I think it was a Secret Service agent who admitted that he was the one who planted the bullet there, but he had found it in the car or something like that. Uh, But it looks like it was planted. This is what I typed, and I'm rethinking it now. I don't know, but I put on here. It looked like it was planted to support the single shooter magic bullet theory. Because and this is part of why. Again, I didn't go into it. They didn't go into it that much either. But the Congress they've had at least one committee since the Warren Commission. They've had at least one committee. I think they've had two, but they at least one of them found that there was more than one shooter. And the thing was, this guy was using an old bolt action rifle. I'm adding this in. This guy used an old bolt action rifle. To this day, there I think has only been one guy who was able to recreate the shooting. But they at the time they had to get 6 shots fired, or they had to get 3 shots fired in 6 seconds because they got a timeline. They got a. It would have been a lot easier if they wouldn't have had any cameras there, but they had the Zapruder film. So they got 3 shots that had to be fired with an old Italian action bolt action rifle in 6 seconds. To this day, using the same gun, there's only been one guy that's been able to do it in a setting where he wasn't in danger of being found out. It was a total stress-free environment, and he's the only one that's ever been able to do it. And I don't think he was the best shot, but he wasn't a bad shot either. But he wasn't like, I don't think I've heard two different conclusions, but I don't think he was the head of the Marines in rifle shooting. I really don't know. I've heard it said both ways. Some people said he was a better shot than others, but and this is the first case of obstruction of justice and destruction of property. State law requires autopsies be done by local authorities, and all the crime scenes should have been secured by local authorities. And what happened was, maybe I skipped something. Hang on. No. You had, like, when he got there, they took him to Parkland. A couple hours later, they tried to, I think they did stuff that they normally wouldn't do, and at the hospital. Just so you know, like, I had a friend, I think he ended up getting a job. Memory's a little weak on this, but he went out to California. Long story, and one of the things he started doing out there was either out there or back home. He started studying for being a paramedic, and his friend out there explained, and then he explained it to me. When you're a paramedic, you have to try and save a person's life. They can literally be found. Now, maybe things have changed, but this was back in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s. You can literally have a guy presented to you in the ambulance with his head removed from his body. You got to try and save him. Because, doctors are the ones that pronounce him dead. And even if you're pretty sure there's nothing, you could be Jesus coming down with the Lazarus cup or whatever, you're not going to be able to bring him back to life. You got to try. Well, I think the doctors did that. There was no reason for them to believe that he should be able to be saved, but they tried. Because back then, I don't think there was any chance somebody who'd been shot in the head like a couple times was going to survive. And but they did, and they pronounced him dead. And hang on, I gotta go to the bathroom, and I'm gonna feed the cats. I will be back as soon as I can. Please don't bail on me. Unless I fall down, I will be back. Oh shit. Oh my God. Hang on, bear with me. I gotta go pick up my stuff. I think I got everything back. Okay. Whew. That kind of sucks. Oh well, hey, that's that hasn't happened in a while. But usually, I usually don't. I don't think I've had to poop. Or I don't. I could have been. I could have been. I was gone for a little bit longer because I was feeding the cats. But I noticed it was like well after 3:30, and they were actually being really good. But yeah, but the when they I don't know if I yeah when he was taken there, it was made pretty clear to the Secret Service agents that state law required anybody that was killed in Texas has to be examined. The autopsy has to be done there. The crime scene. They've got states' rights, and something like that. They should have been. It should have been the state that investigated it. Now the Secret Service, or more likely the FBI, because the Secret Service is not an investigative agency. At least not for murder. They used to do forgery investigations for like dollar bills and stuff like that. That because they were part of the Treasury, but they didn't. Their mandate was not to do violent homicides or whatever. But the FBI should have had somebody attached to it, but it should have been the locals that investigated it. And they were told, that we're going to get this. The coroner's telling them I have jurisdiction, and they were kind of like Trump's judges. They kind of expected him to follow the law, and that first judge, he was a little shocked at the way he represented himself in court. Well, this guy, he just told him, hey, this is a matter of fact. I have jurisdiction. We're going to do and the Secret Service, it's been reported, I wasn't there, but they flashed their gun and they said, look, you can either get out of the way or we're going to run you over with this. And they stole the body and they fled jurisdiction. That was the first obstruction of justice that the Secret Service did. Second one was followed up real clearly. Uh, because if the locals had done it, or if the FBI had done it, they would have preserved the car. You get a new car. This is evidence now. Can't really put it in a bag, but we got this car, and it was pointed out in an anniversary of the assassination. They'd gathered like 4 or 5 esteemed forensic experts. Dr. Lee was the only one to me that stood out. I think he was the one who was God, I might be wrong, but I think he was the examiner in OJ. He's like a well liked and well respected forensic expert, and he pointed out that if the car had been preserved, if it had been preserved as well as the rest of the crime scene, maybe you couldn't have done it then, but he goes, we could go in there now with our computers and our forensics expertise, and we could answer a lot of these many questions that exist, like from the blood splatter. We'd be able, like, you could have done it with the naked. You could have done it with your experts looking at it, but we got computers now that are much more accurate, and that could have told us immediately if there was one shooter or many shooters. And he said just from the blood splatter. Because if you had one shooter, all the blood splatter would be going the same way. And I mean, he had a few points, but the one I might be wrong because this was years ago, and I got issues. But he said if they had investigated the building, which he said allegedly has been sealed. Everything's behind glass. It's a museum now, and they could go through. And he goes, we can get fingerprints off of a lot of sources that you couldn't back then. And he goes, they've got records they fingerprinted everybody that worked there. They had Oswald. And he goes, you could go back, and he said this just so matter of factly, he goes, you could go back and re-examine that crime scene, and if you have any fingerprints that stick out on boxes and other stuff that you couldn't fingerprint back then, he goes, then that'll tell you something. If it's somebody who didn't work there, they didn't know they were there, and yet they've got fingerprints. Now you got another. And it seemed like they cut that short. It seemed like they moved to cancel it, and I've never seen anybody. They didn't go and re-examine it. And again, you add this to the fact, you add this, and you add the fact that they haven't released all the classified tapes. What the fuck is going on? And they didn't go there. They didn't investigate. I bet you that evidence has probably been like gone now. If there was any evidence, I doubt if it is anymore. Because when he came up with that, they probably sent a team down there in the night to fucking erase the evidence, just like they destroyed the evidence in the car. And I don't think I covered this, and this thing didn't cover it. But I've seen other documentaries where they talked about these congressional hearings. Well, the congressional hearings told them they wanted evidence, and then they go, oh, that evidence has been destroyed. And it was like destroyed after they announced they were starting the evidence. From what I remember, it was like destroyed after the Congress admitted that they were going to open up that investigation. And there's a long history of Secret Service destroying it. There's another one, I think it was that cold case one. I might be wrong. But they found out that, I think it was that one. It was one of these ones, and this was a few years ago. But there was all this film that was used to film like the autopsy of Kennedy, and the Secret Service took it all. I mean, it was their show, and the FBI was in there. Well, when the Secret Service was gathering all that information up, the FBI's like, well, we're going to get copies of this. Oh, yeah, you'll get. All of it disappeared. At least that's the way, I think, as I remembered, again, don't even trust, verify this. And if you can't verify, then keep an open mind. But it seems to me they were saying that the Secret Service just made it all disappear. It is what it is. But and yeah, okay. Now I talk about the coroner and but yeah, the coroner was just fucked over. Uh, okay, now they didn't cover what part of what I'm about to tell you in this one. Uh, uh, he was taken to Bethesda Naval Hospital after they got him out of Texas. But from what I remember, the body had changed. I think I'm not saying the body changed, but the presentation changed. Uh, I think it was the container and other stuff. Like the whatever he was wearing, like it was pretty clear that it was not in the condition it was when it left Parkland Hospital. And again, they don't know for sure, but the people that were talking about it had assumed that it had been taken somewhere else first because there was like I think it was a longer gap to get it to the Bethesda, but they speculated maybe it had stopped at Walter Reed or somewhere else, but none of that was mentioned in this. But there was it seemed like it took an awful long time to get him to the Bethesda from the airport, so they were pretty clear that he had stopped off somewhere. And again, the container, I don't want to call it a box because I don't remember, but whatever he was in, physically in the container, was different, I think. And his clothes, I think, had changed, or he was more undressed than what he was. Uh, then when it got into Bethesda, I think the people that should have been doing the autopsy, they were starting, and then they were ordered to stop. The autopsy was not done by experts. It was done by people of rank. Many were desk jockeys, not practicing medicine anymore. Is though I mean they were doctors, but they hadn't touched a body because they were more administrator level people now. And but they did the autopsy. Now this is going to come up later, I think. If not, if I didn't put it in my notes, hopefully I'll remember to talk about it. But I just want to be clear: it was not done by people who were expert at autopsy. Uh, can't believe I fucking got killed. Um, a few years after the autopsy, the brain samples vanished. They were stolen. And when I talk about that stuff that the Secret Service has made, like the films and all that, I want to go back and just see what, again, I'm not saying it's UFOs, but it seems to be the same MO for the government when that reporter, can't remember what her first name is, but I think her last name was Keene. She's related to a former congressman. Uh, she or senator, one of the two, and she had requested very specific things from a UFO site, and then they said, well, yeah, we don't have any record that was searched for back in the day, and we haven't been able to find it. So they're like, it's missing, and it's the same thing here. His brain samples just came up missing. There's no record of. They suspect that it might have been given to Bobby Kennedy or the Kennedy family. Well, that don't make any sense if you gave it to them so they could autopsy it, cremate it, whatever. Have it in cement. Have it in a canopic jar for like ceremonial, sentimental value or whatever. People keep ashes and that. Uh, you just say so. But the Kennedys haven't came out complaining about it, so who knows? Uh, but they've just vanished. Uh, Even though no one saw anything. Oh, okay. Now we're getting into what this guy is claiming. A few years, or even though no one saw anything, witnesses with gun experience say they were upwind of the book depository building and they smelled gunpowder. And this was covered in the Smoke and Gun documentary more recently. No, here I know what I was jotting down in notes. Oswald worked in the book's depository building or something like that. Every now and then I screw it up because it was in. If you ever saw the movie of Full Metal Jacket, he the drill sergeant asked if anybody knew who Lee Harvey Oswald was, and someone goes, "He shot Kennedy, sir." Outstanding, and yeah, it was in the movie. And then he goes, "Does anybody know how far he was when he did it?" I don't know, but it was pretty far from that book suppository. And I sometimes do it without thinking. I've watched that movie a lot. Uh, but it was book depository. He worked there. And then the other one was I can't remember that it was the one. It was a guy who shot. I think they were college students in Texas. Might be Walt Whitman or something. I don't remember what I remember. I don't remember for sure who the name is. But he and then he goes, yeah, he shot all those kids in Texas, sir. And I think he was on a water tower when he shot them. I'm not entirely sure, but the sergeant goes, "Does anybody know where they learned to shoot that well?" And in the Marines, sir, in the Marines. And if before you leave my island, every single one of you will be able to perform in the same way. That was pretty scary. In the Marines, sir. But even though no one saw Oswald at the building, there were no outrage or whatever, him running or coming or going or whatever. Nobody heard any shots either. I think because this goes into it. I'll when I get to the part on it, I'll bring this up again. But the thing I'll see is this guy here has an agenda. I don't know if the documentary does, but it's like all the shit. And you see it in UFO conspiracies. You see it in this conspiracy. They like the facts that fit that support their ideas, and they shit on the ones. And they can be the same thing. You know, you could have like you have one cop, and there's literally like one cop that says he saw Oswald at that building. Other people that worked upstairs and downstairs from other people that were on the stairs at the time after the shooting, they said they don't see him. But oh God, we got this one cop that puts Oswald there. Let's believe him. But yet you got one cop that sees a UFO. Oh, he's a fucking kook. Well, how about a little fucking consistency? If you got one cop and he's the only one that sees it, how about we call him a kook then too? Or the next time you have one cop alone in the fucking desert, nobody else around. I mean, it's not even equal. But how about if you're gonna believe this guy for Oswald, then you should believe the other guy for the UFO. And but if you had three other people that were in the area that said, "Oh man, he was fucking high as a kite. We didn't see any. There was a squirrel over here, but there wasn't any UFOs." That would be the same thing, but you don't even have that, and they're fucking just shitting on the UFO guy, and they're fucking praising the lone cop who might have been involved in a conspiracy. Uh, but nobody, no, there was no big outrage because of Oswald. There was no big outrage because he supposedly was firing off this gun in the building, and then that's why they saw him. Witnesses with gun experience said they were upwind of the book depository building and they smelled gunpowder. Now, I think I got that right, but I'm not a gun expert. I don't really have any of it. But I think that's what it is. If you're upwind, you got to be downwind to smell it, or you got to be real close. But these guys said they were upwind of the building, but yet they smelled gunpowder. That's an indication that the gunpowder did not come from the book depository building. Uh, but even though that was the case, you had witnesses that smelled it from upwind of the building, and nobody at the building saw anything. It was the first place they searched. And it was like immediately afterwards, they had a description of him. Nobody had even reported seeing him. But they were getting these reports in uh, with a description of Oswald in record time, and that he was at the book depository building. And it's still a mystery where this description came from. You know, I mean, granted, I want to be fair. It's history. We didn't have a 911 system back then, but you know, somebody just shot the president. If you're a loyal American, you want to report it. I don't think you're doing a dine and dash on the fucking phone call to the police. You know, in fact, you're going to probably want to stay on that call until they get off their ass and kick you off the phone. You know, it probably ain't going to be you calling. Oh yeah, I saw this strange guy. I wonder if that's the guy. I wonder if that's the son of a bitch who killed me the last time. Revenge is mine. I'm like, what the fuck? Hang on. Okay. Yeah, it's still a movie where mystery with this description. And again, if you have not seen the movie The Shooter, it's a good movie. It had Mark Wahlberg, I think, in it, and I highly recommend it. I really don't know, but again, like they had a case where he was basically, oh yeah, they're gonna kill the president, you got to come and help them. And then he was set up, and you had this bullet that it was like the pristine bullet. It looked like it was in pretty good shape. Well, they did this paper patching drill, and apparently it's a thing that was used back in like the 1800s or something like that. But you shoot a bullet with paper around it, and then it cuts down. I don't know if it's real or not. It might be for the movie, but that matches up better with that pristine bullet. Like again, I don't know. And then you got the one guy who came forward and said, well, he put it on the gurney because he got it out of the car. But it's paper patching, and what you do is you fire a gun, you fire a bullet with this paper patching, and it doesn't catch any of the barrel marks. And so, like, he was trying to see if it was even possible to shoot the president from that far away. So he shot a bullet into like a water target. It was a 2 liter bottle of water or something like that. And then that way it doesn't get that damage when you shoot it. And then the people, they went and grabbed his bullet and they put it in, they put it in another round. And then they did that paper patching technique. So when they killed the guy with it in the movie, it had his rifling on it. And the but that's I highly recommend that movie. And then this one here, when he was supposed to be helping them find the president or protect the president, find the person that was trying to assassinate him, this cop was with him. Well, as soon as the thing went to shit, that cop took a shot at him. And again, uh, this fact that they put out a description of him, supposedly told you where and again, there wasn't any bullet fire. It makes it look like he was a patsy. He was set up. And I really highly recommend you watch that movie. But I'm not saying it is, but I'm just saying some of the stuff that happened to Oswald looks like it's part of that script, then it's a real thing. Uh, allegedly, and then this is another part, after he supposedly, and there's no guarantee, like I've seen evidence that, the guy there was only one guy, it was a cop or whatever. Well, allegedly a cop. I don't know how, I don't know if anybody knew. I don't know enough about it to say for sure. Could have been somebody posing as a cop. I don't know. I just don't know. But he said he saw Oswald on the stairs, and people all over in that building, because it's like 5, 6, 7 stories or something like that, I think. Nobody there had seen him. Nobody there had seen him. So it could be he wasn't there. And then there was another cop. He had allegedly been stopped by an officer, and he shot. There again, all you know is a witness. I think there were two witnesses that saw a guy get stopped by a cop and then just take out a gun and shoot him. But and this is fairly normal. One person said it was somebody in a white T-shirt. The other person, I think, said it was somebody in a gray. It was a white T-shirt or a gray windbreaker or something like that. So those were probably real. It was all over the place. Or maybe it was two people that killed that cop, and they each saw one of them. But and then again, this description came in of the shooter running into this theater, and they don't know where that shooter, where that description came from. It just was. And this cop, his nickname was JFK because he looked a lot like the president. Uh, and again, that guy called in. If somebody shot somebody, I mean anybody I cared about, I wouldn't be in a hurry to get off the phone. I would be willing to get off the phone and like, oh, hey, we got to keep this line open. But I would not be hanging up. I wouldn't be doing a ding dong dash on them to get out. I mean, I just wouldn't do it. I don't think anybody, if you got somebody that's doing that, they're probably up to no good. Again, it might not be that they're in on it, but they're selling drugs, or they're counter, they're doing a crime, and that's why they can't stay on the line with you, because they don't want you tracing it and coming. But I mean, you're dealing with somebody that's probably up to no good if that's the case. And the theater is where they arrested Oswald. He was there. The Oswald case has been reviewed by legal experts, and this isn't part of this. This is me adding into it. But the legal expert, and I've seen more than one, uh, the general consensus, now again, you might have your flat earthers, you might have your climate deniers, but the overwhelming consensus, from what I remember, is that you would not have been able to charge him with this. Uh, the general consensus is like, yeah, I don't have enough. I wouldn't bring charges until I got more. They picked him up on a handshake and a smile. Because you got the witnesses telling him that he was in these buildings. You don't know who they are. You've got no direct evidence. Because they didn't catch him with the gun. They didn't catch him in the crime scene. Yeah, it was his gun, but you didn't catch him with it. He might have been able to, I don't even think you could get him with supplying the gun because of Texas gun laws. But they, there's just the consensus is, and then what's funny is, they had to know that. So before he could even get a lawyer, he was killed by someone connected to the mob. And I mean, it just looks. I mean, again, I'm not saying there is or isn't, but you can see why people have these conspiracy theories, because there might be a legitimate conspiracy here going on. You're not. it's you're not paranoid if they really are out to get you. Uh, while the Warren Commission said Oswald did it, an internal memo said there was a pair. And this is the first I remember hearing about this. And that's what I then they've got good stuff in here. An internal memo to the Warren Commission said there was a paraffin test given by Dallas police shortly after he was arrested or whatever town they were in. It showed while he fired a gun, he could not have fired a rifle. That is a claim of this documentary. I haven't seen that anywhere else, but they basically said they did some kind of a spectral, and so maybe it was something they couldn't do back then, but it was an internal memo. They didn't offer it as evidence, so I think that was something that they knew back then, but it might be because, but they the the test showed that he could not have fired the rifle. I think they gave his hands, his jacket, and his face. Uh, and maybe that's why there was gun residue on his hands, but there wasn't on the upper shoulders or his face where it would have to be if he were firing a rifle like a sniper would, if that makes sense. If you're shooting a gun, not everybody holds that gun. Usually it's held out. Where if you're shooting a rifle and you're trying to hit something that's very, very hard, like three bolt action rifle shots in 6 seconds, you're going to have it up to your face so you can hit with your accuracy. Well, then it'd leave some gun residue on your face. He didn't have gun residue. So when you look at the whole situation, it's likely he shot the cop. At least it's not in the realm of impossibility that he shot the cop. Uh, but it showed that he didn't shoot the rifle, at least not with any accuracy. Uh, okay, and I want to say they talked about it a little bit. You go watch the video. I didn't go into it because I didn't think they were going to go into it that much. But there has been speculation that Oswald was in the intelligence. And this one didn't go into it enough anyways for me I didn't bother taking notes on it because they glossed over it. And but let's get to the expert. This is and again, I'm fully recommending. I've already seen it once, but I watched it again so I could redo the podcast. But I'm fully supporting you to go watch it. But this is where they lost me. Uh, we get to the expert, and I put that in quotes for his take on the situation. Um, he claims, and he might be right on this. This I would say would be in his. Hang on. But he claims that there were two splices in the Zapruder film. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, there wasn't any network television. There was no NBC, ABC, or CBS people there. There was a guy whose last name was Zapruder, and I guess he was a big fan of Kennedy. He really was. He was there with his home movie camera. Not everybody had them back then. They were kind of expensive. So he was a well-to-do guy wearing a suit and all that. Well, he was there filming the day. I think it was 35 millimeter or something like that. That is what's known as the Zapruder film. And there was something my brother was watching, and I don't know if it was a documentary. I think it was a movie or a TV show, and it was made a little bit ago. But they showed I don't know if it was a documentary because I didn't watch it. I kind of came by the room while they were doing it, and they uh, they caught him. Now they didn't have the right to take his camera, and they could have got a warrant, I think, for evidence, but that would have taken time. So they started talking to him. He was more than willing to let them get a copy. Well, they didn't want that to leave their site. They didn't want to count on him mailing it to them later. And so they fucking chauffeured him around. They go, well, where do you? And there was some reason he didn't want to go. They I don't remember the details. Uh, it was either they went where he was supposed to get it processed, and they would have taken time. Wasn't they didn't have 60-minute photo. They definitely didn't have 60-minute film processing. So there was some reason they couldn't go. Either where he was going was somewhere else, like he was just visiting or whatever, or the people could not develop it now. The guy wasn't in or something. And so then they went from place to place, and they finally got one that would develop the film footage for him. And I think he kept the negatives, but they got there, and I think the FBI was paying for it, so he was making out like a bandit. And but when it got there, they asked him, they go, well, how many copies do you want? He goes, well, I just want one. I can get more later if I want to, but I just want one. So they asked for like 4 or 5 copies of the film to be made, and it was kind of cool. But then you had this cop. They were trying to. This guy was willing to work with them. They didn't have to screw around. Uh, they didn't have to screw around getting a warrant. I don't. I think the ruling for the poisonous tree came, but they didn't want it being kicked for. They didn't want it. They didn't want any fucking problems in court with this. These guys were thinking, and so this guy was willing to give him a copy. Well, fuck, we're gonna be nice to you, sir. Come this way. Let us give you a ride. That was what was presented in this. It was just funny as shit. And um, yeah, he made this claim that there was 2 splices, but he said they never told. And I don't know if it's true or not, but Time Magazine is the one that gave it. I think it was Time Magazine. They never gave it to the. They gave it to the Warren. I think it was Time Magazine. They gave their copy of the Zapruder film to the Warren Commission because I think they bought it from Zapruder. And again, by the time the Warren Commission came around, I think all the copies that they had been seized by the Secret Service and they were no longer available. I think that's more indication of evidence that just came up missing because I think it was Time Magazine gave the Zapruder film to the Warren Commission. I think that's what they said. And they didn't tell them that there were 2 splices in it. And if this is true that what he's saying that they didn't tell them, yeah, I would agree with him that that's destruction of evidence and obstruction of justice. And he said everything was based off of it because the line was based off of it, and there was 2 splices. There was missing frames. So their timeline was off. There was at least 2 spots where they had. Now it might have been only a couple seconds, but again, we're talking about 3 shots in 6 seconds. A couple missing frames throws that off a lot. And and the thing is, what was missing in those missing frames? And I don't know if it's true or not, but I don't know if that's true or not. But so I'm not gonna throw it in here. But again, if this is what they're making the claim, uh, I would agree with him. And then he noticed another thing. This is their expert, and again, this I think would be in his wheelhouse. Uh, he noticed a color shift after one of the splices, and this tells him he made some comment that there were two kinds of film that they had back then. One of them, it was based on whether it was indoor or outdoor, and depending on which one of them you had, it would change the tint on either red or blue to increase it or decrease it. So like, you know, the outdoor one was focused so it would take into account for the sun. The indoor one wouldn't have any sun, so it was just basically to make it look good. Well, he noticed that this color shift happened, and I don't know why he went into what the film was. I don't. But he said that this proves that it went under some kind of a process. This is like one instance where I'm thinking he's talking out of the two sides of his mouth, because he admits that they spliced it, and this is his opinion on it, that they did something to the film. And then he's talking about the footage, and he's talking about the lack of the crowd. And again, I would say, because he's like, oh, there's no crowd there. Yeah, and there was nobody running. But there was no crowd there before the shot was fired, and so this is where he loses me on the blame, because he brought it up again. He brought up the networks not being there. Well, this is probably why nobody was thinking this was a serious stop. There wasn't an army. There wasn't wall to wall people. There just wasn't. It was just a handful of people that were probably there, in the area, or maybe they worked there and they came out, but it was not this overwhelming crowd. And then the other thing, now this is the first time I've heard this. I'm not saying it's the first time anybody's caught it, but it's the first time I've heard this. They make the claim and they show the footage, but I mean, is it other footage or is it this footage? But he said there's another cameraman in there. You can see him he shows you the footage. I just don't know. This could have been something he planted in. But there was a guy who was filming the crowd, not the Kennedys, and he's running around with his camera, filming it. I've never heard it before, but if that's true, that's pretty interesting, because I've only heard about the Zapruder film, and that would have probably been just as valid. In fact, that might have, since it wasn't focused on Kennedy, who knows? It might have caught somebody that was guilty. He makes the claim that no one saw anybody shooting that day at all. I remember on the day of, you had people that saw puffs of smoke. I mean, this is the reporting. It was footage of people, I think, on that day or in that year. These are some of the older documentaries. See, and this guy, I don't know, but I'm old enough to remember watching them, some of them. Now, granted, I wasn't born when this happened, but they were showing them. Fuck, I think we watched something like this every year on PBS. We didn't really mind, but it didn't matter if we mind or not. There's one TV in the house, and if Dad's got JFK on, we're gonna have JFK hour or whatever. But because my parents grew up in that generation where you remembered where you were. I never understood it until 9/11, because I don't think I can physically forget. Now maybe down the road that'll change with me getting sicker, but I can remember where I was on 9/11. I had come home from work, and I hadn't gone to bed yet. I was up watching TV. I got done at like 2 in the morning, And at that time, I usually stayed up till like 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, give or take. And then I went to sleep and I got up in the afternoon and went to work. And, that's where I was. I was watching the news when it happened. Uh, and I never understood the Kennedy people that, oh, I remember where I was. I remember where I was. I was watching. I was watching TV. I was in shock and horror when the first fucking plane hit the building. I was watching it live on TV. Part of me wishes that I'd have been asleep and I do what I do now, where I go to sleep at night and get up in the morning. But yeah, that I remember seeing footage of people that day. They saw puffs of smoke from the grassy knoll, and he's saying nobody saw that. No, nobody saw. Well, maybe they were lying, but that was what people were saying. I think at the time, So I just that you kind of get because you're ignoring the eyewitness testimony, and then you got the people that smelled. They were extremely upwind from the book supposit the book I did it again the book depository building, and they smelled gunfire. They smelled gun smoke. Uh, Now they didn't see it, but their nose told them, and it couldn't have come. Or the way the wind was blowing, it could not have come from Oswald. It had to come from the opposite end. Um, and there was one. I've seen this guy in two different. I've seen this guy in two different documentaries. One of them was that the men who killed Kennedy. I think it's like an 8-part thing that the BBC did, and he's a deaf guy, and he claims to have been up on a bridge watching for Kennedy. And he was over, he had a full view of the grassy knoll. And he claims, and he did it in two different documentaries, he claims that he saw a guy afterwards breaking down a rifle, throwing it to a buddy who put it in a packet, a little bag, or like railroad work tools, and and then he just walked away. The other guy went one way, he took the gun and went the other way. Uh, he claims that people were saying they saw shit, and that's where he kind of loses me. The first time I watched it, I don't think I remember, but it's like, yeah, they've had people that said they saw stuff. You've got people that smelled stuff. All of it points to, at least in the general direction of the grassy knoll. Uh, and he's talking about how loud the gun would have been. And this is what I want to get back to. He brings up how loud. Oh, do you know what a 30 caliber rifle? It's loud. Well, yeah. Then okay. Then that means that he didn't fire. He didn't fire one from the book building, because everybody would have heard it. It would have been loud, right? It would have been loud. You want to come sit with me? I might have a co-pilot for the stream. You want to come sit with me? Yeah. Come on. Oh, she good girl. But he's talking about how loud this gun is, and to me, he is taking facts, not in evidence, and running with them. In one documentary made after 2000, a former police detective looked at this as a cold case, and he found errors in the autopsy. The one bullet hole that was too small to be from Oswald's gun, a cover-up of frangible bullets that could not have come from Oswald's gun. And what I'm getting at is, there's things that have been found to not be true. There was a Australian cop, retired. He works cold cases now. Well, he dusted off, and he worked with. I think he worked with the guy who's actually the one guy that's been able to recreate Oswald's shooting. He's one guy, and it took him, I think, a couple tries to do it, but he's like a gun expert. And those guys worked on the case together, but the autopsy had many errors in it. Like there was a bullet wound that was in the wrong place. So he got the body out and he reinvestigated it, and you've got this. Uh, and one of the holes he checked, he's like, this is too small because he had like something the size of Oswald's bullet and it wouldn't go through it. He goes, you can't have a bullet that makes too small of a hole. If you got a 9 millimeter bullet, your bullet hole is going to have to be at least 9 millimeter. It can make one a little bit bigger. It goes through cocked or whatever. But he goes, there's no way a 9 millimeter round can make a 7 millimeter hole or whatever it is. And so there's evidence, but when he makes this claim, well, it can't be both. You can't have Oswald shooting from the thing, and it's so loud, and then then you can't go and say, well, you either got to say both are bad or both are good, and that if it's too loud outside, fuck it, firing a gun outside is a lot better than firing one inside. And that's, I mean, again, if Oswald shot that gun like they said he did, everybody that is nearby should have been like checking out the fucking the stairs. They should have been running away. It shouldn't have been this calm thing where, well, yeah, I didn't see him. There could have been a suppressor used, and it doesn't make, they call them silencers. Well, it's a suppressor. It might make the gun a lot more. And again, you had that deaf guy who said he saw someone breaking down a gun. Sounds like they had a surprise. I don't know if they were existing back then. I think they were, maybe not. But that's something you can't just assume stuff. And he's assuming stuff. And I watching the Jack Reacher things. In an investigation, details matter. It's the second time I've gotten to use that. He is making the claim that JFK. Oh yeah, this is the other one he got into. He's claiming that there were no shots fired, and he thinks it was a movie prop, which has been around since the 1940s, and that's what it was. Well, when you watch those movie props, the footage of it, they didn't throw the head. Like one guy, he got shot. It was probably okay. This was probably fake, but when it went off, it didn't do anything to the dummy. It just popped the eye. And you've got other people that are shot. It doesn't throw the body like Kennedy's was, because any explosive that's that bad is probably going to damage you. So that right there, yeah, this is supposed to be a movie prop. Well, it doesn't match up with the ones he showed from that time period. Because you see the body moving. You see the fucking head getting violently. There's no indication. And like the one thing where you see like blood and stuff spray, that wasn't apparent in the Hollywood version of it. It was an explosion, a little bit. Well, this through the head, and the little pattern looked different because it was probably a bullet. And I got a feeling that this guy here's got an agenda. I don't know if he's working for Big Brother, but it really seemed to me that this was just, it was the latest attempt to cover up something horrible. But the thing you see is he talks about the part where you see Kennedy's hands go up, and he's showing you it's from the Zapruder film. He's letting you see that Kennedy's hands come up, and most people assume that that's when he got shot in the throat. I agree. And then he goes, well, that's when I knew. Well, how did know what? What did you see that nobody else can see? And he thinks that because then after he did this, he went and put his hand on his face, and he said, and you can see it. Well, okay, wait a minute. You just said that you can tell that this video's been processed. And I agree. Well, that processing could have been what is making this look like it. It might not be what you're saying. It just could be the video processing. Kind of, it'd been processed so much, the head wasn't, and all the frames weren't great, you know. And then this is the part where he totally loses me. What you could see on the video was some distortion here. And I think that could have just been, it's an old film, and it's not modern day, it's not digital. It's one that's been processed. It's a copy of a copy, which they also explain. But then the thing that he put here, just taking him at his word, you could see something here. Well, it magically exploded up here. Now, if it had exploded here, at least it would be consistent with what he was saying. But he said, he put something on his face, and then it magically exploded up here on the forehead. And like I said, again, the ones that he showed they were using in Hollywood, they were very, very small. They were targeted. They were controlled. This one blew half his fucking forehead off. Again, what he's showing doesn't match up with what we saw with Kennedy. It looks like a bullet hit him. It doesn't look like it. And the other thing is, most of these squibs or whatever he's talking about, they were under the clothes. I seriously doubt back then they had the technology. Like, they might be able to do it now. But I think today, even, if they're going to have you wear it, they're going to have you in and put some makeup on and all. It's not just a press-on nail, You're going to have to be in, and there was no, we're going to be in makeup chair for. No, he just put it on. That just didn't make any sense. That's about as far as I got. I got about 50 minutes in it. I fully recommend you check this out. But that's as far as I got today. And I just want to throw out, there has ever to this day only been one trial in the JFK assassination, and it was performed by a DA. It's either a DA or Attorney General, I think in New Orleans. And it's the movie with Kevin Costner, made by I can't remember the director's name or the producer's name, but I would highly. That's another one. If you're interested in this subject, that's another one I would highly recommend you watch. It has been shit on by most of the people, but again, I see some similarities there. Most of the people who have legal experience, they will tell you that a prosecutor generally will not bring a case that's flimsy. They want to bring one that, because those are jobs you have to get elected for. They want to bring one with teeth. And he brought this case, and then his evidence went to shit. Not because anything he did. And I think this is a similarity to the cover-up of the Phoenix Lights. That governor, elected official, that governor started looking into it, and they did the same thing to him. And then this one here, it looks like the same dirty trick squad. It looks like a government, could be a possible government cover up, because they're like, well, this does. And the other thing I'll tell you is, there's some that will sit there and they will just shit on that movie. Well, people have come forward, and I don't remember who they were, but they said that he had been this guy, and he said as soon as they declassify it, I got a book ready to publish. And he was somebody that was in so he had access to things that he couldn't talk about. He couldn't he couldn't do it until it was declassified. But he said a lot of what was in Oliver Stone, that's the guy's name, but a lot of the stuff that was in Oliver Stone's movie matches up with the Russian information. And you got to understand, when this happened, the Russians, they didn't order it, but they were worried that some rogue agent fucking went off the rails, and they wanted to know if it was going to basically come barking at the door, that their door. They wanted to have a handle on it, and so they wouldn't get caught off guard with it. And so they did the investigation. Well, I think after the Soviet Union collapsed, we got it, or they gave it to us afterwards back in the day. But he said that what Oliver Stone got, he thinks that Oliver Stone must have had a contact who gave him access to Russian stuff. Because he said that was a lot like, and he said, I got a book ready to print as soon as this ever gets declassified. But yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. But I like the fact that it was a new take on the JFK. I think it's complete horseshit, but I could be wrong. I absolutely could be wrong. But a lot of it, what he says, even to my eye, it's not making the case. It just isn't. But peace out. Hope you take care and have a good day. And I will be on as soon as I can. It takes me a little longer to do these now. And I think they are turning out a little bit better. Maybe not. But I got to take longer because I need to take notes, and I never used to. And I could basically do a lot of these off the cuff. And again, I know they're not great, but I got to take notes now. So hopefully I'll see you in a day or two. Peace out and take care.